What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me are my two great co-hosts, Fede Perez and Ralph Hannah. And guys, here we are. We're about to enter a new month. It's already April. It's spring here in the United States for those that are listening, but maybe in Paraguay over there, it is fall. Obviously, a lot of football has been going on over the last week. We saw the celebrations happening in CONMEBOL, maybe towards Argentina a bit more than our Paraguayan teams, but they have been drawn in the Copa Libertadores and the Sudamericana group stage. We'll talk about the 5 teams and their chances of getting out of the group, which starts obviously this week. We'll talk about what's been going on with the national team with their game against Chile that happened a couple of days as well. Obviously, a lot to really speak into that. I guess before we get into our conversation about what's been going on in these competitions and obviously in the friendly, obviously let's go to Fede Perez here, because obviously we got a big race happening as well in the Apertura. Obviously, you know, big games happening at the minute with the table really getting tightened up. We got Olimpia playing Guarani on Saturday, third against fourth at the time of recording, and Libertad against Cerro, first against second. So obviously these are 2 big games, and of course the other games that are happening during the weekend as well that could have huge permutations in the entire league action. But Fede, I'm excited about these 2 games because, like I said, these games could be the ones that could decide title races here on there.
Yeah, totally. I'm with you, Roberto. Hi to you. Hi to Ralph. Hi to everybody. We got some exciting games going to happen this weekend. We had Libertad play against Olimpia just a couple of days ago. They actually recovered from that after several days because they waited. They had too many players on the national team, so they were able to uh, wait until Thursday to play their game against General Caballero, and they ended up winning on a last minute win. It's amazing how Libertad just keep on doing it. They keep on winning. They barely tie. I think they only have 1 tie during this whole season so far. It's most about winning for them, especially at home. They made it happen, and now they got to play against Cerro Porteño this weekend as we're recording. Olimpia got to do it against Guarani just to start it off this week number 10 already. It's crazy how things just keep on happening for this Apertura. Last weekend we were talking. We got to look back also and see that Cerro tied, Olimpia tied, Guarani tied, so they weren't able to catch up to this Libertad, who just keeps on taking it away so far. But we got so many games that can still maybe hold this team back a bit. I think I'm seeing a lot from Libertad right now. I mean, anybody that just keeps on coming in is just being a solution, like Ivan Ramirez, who had him probably right on the plans just a couple of weeks ago, not even being considered, and he was the one that came in to give Libertad this late win. There was a lot of partying also going on in CONMEBOL. We got to talk about that. Infantino is here, the FIFA president, these past days with Robert Harrison, with Alejandro Dominguez, the CONMEBOL president, and the FA president also. And we got so many exciting things happening here, Roberto. Intermedio, the 2nd division, is also starting. Obviously, I'm looking at the bright side of things, because if we're going to talk about the national team, I'm going to get violent on this podcast. There's a couple of good things maybe to talk about this Albi Roja, but not much, Roberto. And looking ahead, we got September coming. We got important games on the way with qualifications. I think there's only one more FIFA date there. I don't know if we're going to play another friendly or not. I hope we don't, because lately watching this team is just suffering and suffering.
Well, hold your fire for now, Fede. Hold your fire for now. But we'll get to that conversation for the national team in a bit. But let's go to Ralph here as well, because obviously, like Fede said, yes, there had been some celebrations in CONMEBOL, maybe to the disgust a bit of Paraguay, even though they were the host of all these events commemorating Argentina. Maybe they commemorated Argentina just a little bit more. Obviously, we're speaking on the day that I think obviously the U20 World Cup will be moved from Indonesia to Argentina, which I think for Paraguayan fans will feel like even a bit more of a blow, considering that Paraguay were able to finish ahead of Argentina and not qualify for the World Cup. So this is a big blow for us as Paraguayan fans, as Paraguayan football fans, but also, you know, we got the keeping into the CONMEBOL connection. We got the U17 championship already starting over there in Ecuador. You know, certainly a competition, if any competition that Paraguay can qualify for, at least from a men's or women's perspective, at least let it be this one, you know, in a in a group with, at the time, Argentina, Peru, Venezuela, Bolivia. Same thing goes. 3 teams from each group qualify for the final 6. Top 4 qualify for the U17 World Cup, and the 5th place team possibly in a playoff. So yeah, this is something that I think Paraguayan fans hopefully are looking into this new generation. You talk about the national team really quick, certainly these are always the competitions that, sometimes you get a star player, sometimes you don't, but at least it shows that, Paraguayans can indeed compete in a competition like this one.
Yeah, that's right. Hi guys, good to be back after my break. Yeah, I mean, it's the under 17s is an interesting time because this is very different to the under 20s, which we covered in lots of depth, where in the under 20s you have most of those players are playing senior football, right? Whereas here this really is a youth tournament. From the Paraguayan team, I'm trying to think. I mean, Cesar Minio is there from Guarani, who has got some first team minutes, but generally this is a really youth tournament. So you start to see players very often for the first time and try and see what they can do. It's a very tough group. Let's see what we can get from Paraguay. They're in a strange position because their coach is Aldo Bobadilla, who's also the coach of the under 20. So he's managed both groups, which is interesting because of course he failed to get to the World Cup in the under 20s. And he still has this task here. So he gets like 2 chances to try and go to a World Cup. But we'll see what they can do. But it's a very tough group to start, which, to be fair, was the same in the under 20s, right? But what happened there is they did really well to get through the group, and then they ran out of steam in the final round. If you remember, they just couldn't keep themselves going. And just while we're talking about the youth players, maybe we will mention quickly Mati Segovia, who was the star, well, one of the stars of the under 20s, the other one being Diego Gonzalez, who's already headed off to Lazio. Well, Mati Segovia, he looks like he's on his way to Brazil, to Botafogo, which is something that I think is a good move for him because he gets to go into a much more competitive league. And the big thing about Segovia is he's really talented, but he's not very big. He's not very physical. So let's see if he starts to condition himself in this more competitive league. And so that's good. And it's good to see that tournament, even though Paraguay didn't qualify for the World Cup, some of those players are getting their moves.
Definitely always a stepping stone for any player to go to a big league like Brazil, especially a team like Vasco da Gama as well. So hopefully that does indeed happen and we could see his career progress from there. But let's talk about obviously what happened in CONMEBOL, aside from the celebrations from the Argentina national team given for winning the World Cup over there. We did see the draw of the Copa Libertadores and the Copa Sudamericana. We saw the 5 teams from Paraguay in each of the 2 competitions. We'll start with the Libertadores with the 3 Paraguayan teams in there in Olimpia, Libertad, and Cerro Porteño. Going in order, obviously the first group that we'll talk about will be Group C, with Cerro Porteño being drawn in a very difficult group, I would say. This is a team that's going to travel, I think, something like 12,000 kilometers through all the distance, with Palmeiras of Brazil, the always the big heavyweights in not just in Brazil but all of South America, having won Copa Libertadores and have always been very strong. Then they travel to Bolivar, to La Paz, playing in altitude, and then all the way to Ecuador in Guayaquil to play on Barcelona of Guayaquil. Looking at the other group in the order, it will be Group G with Libertad, who are the team that's actually going to be the least traveled out of all of the Paraguayan teams at 9,756 kilometers. They'll be traveling to Brazil twice because they'll be playing Atlético Paranaense in Curitiba. They'll be taking on Atlético Mineiro in Belo Horizonte, and then they'll be traveling to Lima to take on Alianza Lima. And then finally, in the last group, we got Olimpia, who was the side that was actually the first seed in the group stage draw. They'll be heading on to Colombia to take on Atlético Nacional. They'll be going to Peru to take on Melgar, and then they'll be finishing it off against Patronato of Argentina. So Fede, I'm going to go to you on this one. Certainly 3 different groups and 3 different perspectives for all the 3 teams here. I would say from the get-go, I'd say for Olimpia and for Cerro Porteño, I think they could feel very much happy about it. Certainly taking on a side like Palmeiras from the get-go shows that they can demonstrate how competitive they are against all the other big teams. Certainly Barcelona had that really good run to the semifinals a couple of years back as well. And then for Bolivar, I think traveling to altitude is certainly a big, big test. But I think from the way that Cerro Porteño are playing at the moment, I think they can feel that they can get some result away from home and obviously get the result they can get from home as well. So just going off from there and then looking at other groups, I think Olimpia can feel very happy about their group. I think they're in a good chance to not just qualify, but I think win their group. And I think for Libertad, big task ahead, two Brazilian sides. Yes, you have the so-called punching bag of South America in Alianza Lima, a side that is very much annually inconsistent when it comes to competitions like this. So Libertad are in there for a chance, but I think it's going to be difficult for them to see off both Brazilian sides in this one. So how do you see these three groups and just their chances of qualifying to the round of 16?
I think all three Paraguayan teams have very good chances of qualifying. It's just about keeping everybody healthy. Right now, Cerro Porteño is flying. If we're talking about just how good these teams are heading into the competition, right? I mean, one thing is just how you began the year. Another thing is how you are right now when the competition starts. We're already by the 4th month of the year, and it's about right now. And Cerro's doing a much better job of maintaining all their players pretty much on their top shape or getting even there. And Olympia's having a lot of problems in that sense. I mean, they have a whole bunch of injured players as of right now, and I don't know how they're going to do in these first games, especially in Libertadores. And as for Libertad, also they've also been having problems with injured players, with players that were part of the starting team, and Garnero knows this. So I think Libertad and Olimpia still have to kind of get it together in the sense of the players they're going to use in this big competition. As for Cerro Porteño, it's been just great so far. I mean, they had the longest Libertadores, but they get to this group stage feeling really good about themselves. And with a couple of games, I think that are just going to be very good for them in the sense of knowing just where they are for this Libertadores. I mean, playing against Palmeiras a couple of games is just going to be the great test for them, just to see how far they can really get. Besides the group stage, obviously you're going to aim maybe for that second spot, just because thinking that Palmeiras is going to blow everybody out, right? I mean, Bolivar, Barcelona, you're thinking that Palmeiras is going to have no problems with these kinds of teams. So Cerro's got to try to make a name for themselves in the Palmeiras match, and obviously win the big ones at home against Barcelona and Bolivar. So it's all going to come down to those last games, obviously, which is why I'm liking the calendar from Olimpia, because I was looking at Olimpia, their last 2 games of the group stage, they play at home. Home for them is going to be apparently Defensores del Chaco, and not their stadium, where they thought that they could play a couple of these games, especially against Atlético Nacional, which is a team they ended up beating last year. That was a very important match in Sudamericana, I believe. So they're going to see themselves again. Libertad also had their couple of games last season against Atlético Paranaense, so they're going to see this rival again this season in Libertadores. So, it's similar faces, and I think it's just great that the Paraguayans, especially Libertad and Cerro Porteño, have the chance to see themselves face to face with a couple of Brazilians, Roberto. I think those are the teams that really get you ready for this competition. I mean, we have no big teams from Argentina, so it's going to be, I think, the rivalry in these groups against the Brazilian teams as for Libertad and Cerro Porteño. For Olimpia, I think it's Atlético Nacional, the big rivalry in their group. I don't know if we're going to get the best out of Melgar or Patronato. I think Olimpia really had it easy if you look at their possibilities of what kind of group they could have gotten. So I think it was a very good draw for them. I'm liking what I'm seeing from these CONMEBOL draws lately. I mean, fairly spread out. I mean, maybe a couple of seasons ago, we had one very strong group. Right now, you look at all groups, and I'm not finding one very hard group, one that stands out. I think it's all pretty fairly spread out. So I'm liking our chances. I don't know what Ralph thinks about our Paraguayan teams this season, 2023, or the Brazilians are going to take it away again, Ralph.
Yeah, well, it's like, first, like you said, it's like is the revenge mission for all these teams that they get to face sides they played last year. But especially for Cerro and Libertad against the Brazilians, yeah, this is the time to see, have we improved from about 6 months ago when we last played, or in Cerro's case, actually, it's even longer ago, that Palmeiras game now. But have we got better? Are we going to be able to compete? I think in a way it's obviously different in the group stages, because when the teams come here to, well, here, I'm not in Paraguay, but when they come to Paraguay, they're not always looking to win. The Brazilian sides are funny, I think, in group stages. If you see away from home, they often don't do that well in group stages, and then they kind of come alive in the knockouts. So we have to remember that if Libertad and Cerro do well, maybe we shouldn't get too carried away. But I think you're right. It's a really good way to start shaping up and seeing how they're going to do. For Cerro, is really interesting, Roberto, that you talked about the mileage. I hadn't picked up on that, but for Cerro, they've at least already had the qualifiers, or the preliminary rounds, which allowed them to start working out what's going to be my team for the league and what's my team for the Libertadores, because they're going to come back from this game on Thursday. They're playing on Thursday, and then they have to go straight into a league match. Well, just after the weekend, because it was Easter, so they change kind of the days in Paraguay when the games are played. But they've already done that, or Sava has already done that himself, so he has that kind of experience. Then for Olimpia, it's going to be really difficult, to Fede's point, that even though the teams they're playing are maybe not as strong, everybody's getting injured. It's incredible. I mean, Derlis Gonzalez is out for a long time. That's going to be difficult. I think Montenegro now is saying that he's not feeling very well. He's not fit. Bruera, last night we got the medical report that he's not playing. So like all their strikers are starting to get injured, and this is not the right time for that to happen. In Libertad, they have their problems too, but like we say, they always seem to find solutions. It's a real shame that, for example, Hugo Martinez is out again. He's injured yet again. Alfio Oviedo was out because he was suspended, but he should be fit again. But then Roque came back, right? Roque got some minutes after being out with injury himself for Libertad, and he was.
Lorenzo Melgarejo also.
Melgarejo's out as well. Yeah. But then you have Roque coming in, so it's like they have so many players that they should be able to handle the double competition. The real tough game, I would say, for Libertad, or the crucial game that's going to be, is the Paranaense one, because you can see Mineiro probably qualifying. You can see all of them beating Alianza Lima, who have a very poor record in Libertadores. So it's going to be that Paranaense game, which was the big game for them last year, right? I think in the Sudamericana that they had that battle. So I think that's the real one to watch out for. And for Cerro, the one thing to look out for is how they do in altitude, because that could be interesting if somehow Barcelona were to get some results there, right? And then suddenly Cerro maybe need to pick up more points away than they were thinking. So that's maybe the key game for them, that big trip to up the mountain to La Paz. But it's good. It's looking exciting.
It is. It definitely is. I think you have three different perspectives for all the teams. I think in the case of Cerro and Libertad, I think you have, taking on the Brazilian side too, traditionally are always considered among the favorites to win this competition. I think for Cerro's case, they are taking against maybe the co-favorite. I think Flamengo is still maybe the favorite to win this, but maybe one of the top two or top three favorites to win this entire competition. So it's a good test. It's a good test for them to see how they stack up in this competition. I think when you look at Libertad, I mean, taking on two Brazilian sides, I think, Mineiro have always been a side that have always been competitive in this competition. They also have a good team as well, Paranaense, a side that, has maybe right now the best young player in all of South America right now in Victor Roque. So he's the one that I think a lot of Paraguayan fans, or at least those that are fascinated by the new youngsters, are able to see him play in Paraguay or even in Brazil. So certainly a big test. And for Olimpia, I mean, you would think that they are the favorites to get out of this group, but again, with all these injuries that are happening to them, for this side, it's coming in at the wrong time. So it could be something that could cost them. But I think looking forward and going into, I want to go to Ralph on this one. Really, I mean, do you see all these three teams qualifying to the round of 16? Do you see one of them making it to a Sudamericana, if at all? I mean, how do you assess their chances of qualifying? And if you could say it right now, I mean, obviously we still have a lot to play for. The competition won't start until next week, and the group stage won't end until the end of June. But just looking ahead, and if you are going to be a betting man, do you see all three of these teams with a realistic chance of going to the round of 16, or one of them going to the Sudamericana, or if any of them not qualifying at all?
I think the one I'd be more worried about is Libertad, because the group is tough, but also Garnero has a habit of not doing well in continental competition. It's been like that thorn in his side. We thought maybe last year he was going to do it in the Sudamericana, but he's never really been able to, I don't know why, but manage the games. I think it's sometimes, managing those games when the points are at stake. So I'd be worried for Libertad. I'm sure they could make third. That won't be a problem, but maybe they won't get through. Cerro, like I say, I think the Bolivar game away is actually going to be an important one. Well, maybe they'll beat Barcelona, I don't know, home and away, but I think the Bolivar game is an important one. And so it could be tricky. I feel they'll do enough to get second place. And Olimpia really should be getting through. Whatever issues they have, there's no way they should be below two of those teams in that group. They should probably win the group, but they should definitely be able to see themselves through.
Olimpia has done everything wrong this year, Ralph. I don't expect them to go well this season, to be honest. Ever since they took out Julio Cáceres, it's just been downhill for them. These injuries are even worse. Yeah, he got a new coach, but he's not a magician. I mean, I don't know what he's going to be capable of doing with this team, with this squad. I mean, if the young players maybe start coming in and they make a difference, or if somehow he starts building a whole new midfield, which is, I think, what he's going to try to do these next couple of games, because the whole team was around Derlis Gonzalez. That was the main star, and he's going to be out for a while. I don't know if he's even going to be able to play Libertadores this year. So I think Olimpia is going to be the one that's not going to be able to get out of this group stage. I think Olimpia is going to end up falling in Sudamericana, and we're going to end up doing 2 out of 3 in this Libertadores this year. I do expect Libertad to make it happen. I mean, if it's not now, when is it going to be for Garnero? I mean, how many Libertadores? He's got the experience. This is the best coach I believe we have in Paraguay these last years. I mean, the titles prove it. And he's got to make it happen in Libertadores. And it's now with this roster. We don't know where Libertad is going. I don't know if they're going to keep up this budget for the squad next season. We got to see if that's going to keep on happening, if they're going to keep on bringing stars that like they've done lately to try to build a team to fight in Libertadores, or if they're going to start looking more and more into the young players like they're doing also lately, more into their young squads. But I think they're going to make it through the group stage. And for Cerro Porteño, I mean, this is the team right now that I think is just building and building. And you don't know how far they're going to get with this new coach. And I'm loving what I'm seeing from Cerro Porteño. And if they keep up the spirit, I think they're going to do great things in Libertadores also. And there's a hot ticket in all 3 of these groups, I believe, Roberto. I mean, Cerro fans are going to want to be in that Libertadores match. When they play Palmeiras, Libertad fans are going to want to be in that Atlético Paranaense game. And obviously, there's a lot of history between Olimpia and Atlético Nacional. So we're going to have, I believe, stadiums that are going to be pretty much filled, especially because we saw that Cerro is doing the special promotion for their fans. So that's great. That hopefully helps out to have those Libertadores stadiums, that atmosphere that we also love to see here in South America, which I think we're going to get in those Olympic games and those Cerro Porteño big games, because they're the teams that take the most people to the stadiums here.
Yeah, the Cerro prices are really good. You can go for as cheap as $9 to see all 3 games, not just $9 per game, but all 3 games.
How much is it to watch a game in the USA, for instance, Ralph? Since the next World Cup is going to be there, how much money would it take for me to go and sit down and watch a football game over there?
I mean, it does actually vary a lot, but you can go to some games for like $40, so it's not that expensive depending who you're going to see. But then, I mean, there's often friendlies and stuff come down here, and you're looking at over $100 for friendlies. I mean, I don't know, the Arsenal MLS All-Stars, I'm seeing like thousands of dollars people are saying to watch that game, which is essentially a friendly. So, I mean, getting Copa Libertadores experience for $9, 3 games for $9, that's incredible.
That's an incredible deal. So I think for those that are listening or want to go to South America and want to pay less for a Copa Libertadores game than a nice meal or something, definitely do take advantage of that, because it doesn't happen to everyone. That's for sure. So we'll switch gears to what's been going on in the Sudamericana, obviously the second tier competition in South America. Excuse me. Obviously, we got 2 Paraguayan teams playing in that in order. We got Guarani playing Emelec of Ecuador, Danubio of Uruguay, and Huracán of Argentina, and Tacuarembó in a very tough group. They got Estudiantes de La Plata of Argentina, Red Bull Bragantino of Brazil, and Oriente Petrolero of Bolivia. The good news, you would say, for these Paraguayan sides is that, making it now to the round of 16 is now more easier, because obviously now there are 2 spots up for grabs. First place team obviously going into the round of 16. This year they changed it now so that the second place team will be going to the knockout round playoffs, which will basically take on I would assume the teams that go into 3rd place from the Copa Libertadores, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, there you go. So, Ralph, go to you on this one. I think you really see 2 different sides and their chances. I think for Guarani, at least in the way that they've been playing right now, I think they're in with a good chance to qualify out of the group, maybe into the knockout rounds, because of the competition they have. Yes, Emelec is a very tough side in Ecuador. Danubio and Huracán have also been kind of consistent sides in their leagues as well. But I think when you look at Tacuarembó, I mean, you got Estudiantes, a heavyweight of Argentina, Red Bull Bragantino, who have been kind of one of those like underrated sides in Brazil. And then you have to go all the way to Santa Cruz de la Sierra to play in Bolivia against Oriente Petrolero. So they're 2 different teams with 2 different objectives, I would say. But how do you rate their chances of going into the next round, or any of the next rounds?
Yeah, I think it's very different. And firstly, the way you explained the format, so they're copying basically the Europa League format, which also changed this year, and that produced some really good games in Europe. So hopefully it will also work for us in the Sudamericana, because sometimes the Sudamericana has been a bit of a slog, at least until like the quarterfinals, when it starts to get interesting, because you do have some very big mismatches, and one of the mismatches is poor Tacuarembó, because they've been by far the worst team in Primera this season. Their kind of one big game was the win to qualify for these group stages, but now their manager's just gone, and they brought in another manager, Badacayo Maciel, who didn't have a great time in Luqueño. So you're kind of thinking, you don't see much hope for Tacuarembó. They also are going to have to focus on not getting relegated now. That's going to be more important in a way than trying to qualify through the group stage. The good thing for them is they already get the money for being in the group stages. So I think what we'll see there is a kind of hope and a prayer that they don't get beaten too badly in those games. And qualification would be really unlikely. For Guarani, it's a bit different, right? Guarani, like you were saying, I don't know, you said they're playing well. For me, they play well in flashes, and then they kind of let you down. Like the last 2 games that they've drawn, you kind of felt, what were they doing? Like what was Lopez doing actually in terms of his subs and the way he's managing the game? So they have the potential, I think, to do something interesting and get through, but you have to really see how they're going to manage the game tactically. So that's something, well, tactically and the use of the players. So that's something I don't think I've been convinced by this season so far. But if they get it right, they have the quality. You're right there. And someone like Federico Santander is this guy's got a good record in these big competitions. So I remember in Libertadores he did things in the past. So let's see, maybe he can pull out some magic and get them through.
Yeah, he's going to be very important, right? Especially with Barcelona out pretty much these last couple of games, and he was looking very good as the striker for this Guarani team. He was scoring. He was top goal scorer also, I believe, the first games of this Apertura. You were hoping to see more out of him, especially alongside with Santander. We barely seen them together. And the thing about Santander, I believe he's only going to be here for 6 months, and then he's got to go back to his team in Italy. I don't know if they're going to be able to maintain him the whole season, the whole year. It would be important, especially if Guarani keeps on going in this Sudamericana. I think it's a great fit for Guarani, actually, the Sudamericana, especially with the team that's just trying to build and build, right? They got a new coach. They're looking ahead. He started out pretty good, competing against the big teams in the Apertura, which is just what they were waiting for. I mean, you're not hoping to see Guarani blow out everybody because they don't have the budget really right now. They're changing their presidency after a long time. The Acosta family left the club, so they're kind of adjusting to this new era now, and that also came with this new coach with Rodrigo Lopez that really stands out in all his teams so far. He did it in Nacional. He's doing it again now with a bigger team, with a bigger budget, with bigger names, with like Guarani, and bringing in really good players. I mean, everything they brought this year in is working now. They're all playing. Moya alongside Marcos Cáceres, the Colombian, in defense. I mean, he's been pretty much regular all season around. Everything they brought so far. So I'm liking their chances in the Sudamericana. Actually, I think they have players with experience, like Santander, like Ralph was saying, like Marcos Cáceres also. That's a player that can lead the way, I believe, in the locker room especially. And for Taquari, it's a totally different scenario. I mean, it's kind of Guaireña's situation last year around, but with a lot more difficulties, with a lot more problems, I believe. And it's all going to be about the money for them, just how far they can get, and the players trying to show off, trying to see if they can make a name for themselves and try to get a transfer. I mean, this is a team that's just trying to do that right now. It's a club that's trying to sell players, especially, and trying to maintain themselves on first division. So yeah, I'm with Ralph on that one. I think they're going to be, their heads is going to be more on the Apertura and trying to get on a winning streak, trying to make some points there. And in the Sudamericana, just think about the money and see if you can get a couple of wins and try to fight it. I like the format. Hopefully it does bring better games, because Sudamericana is not that attractive, to be honest here, guys. I mean, most people here in Paraguay, they don't give much attention to the Sudamericana. So I'm hoping these small little changes make a difference, because we kind of need that for this competition also.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously seeing a bit of the quality is so important. I think hopefully these Paraguayan teams can prove that they can indeed compete in this competition. Let's switch gears now to a game that I think, many people were kind of hoping that would be something to be positive to talk about. Unfortunately, it is not. It will be the game that we had mentioned last week, the only Paraguay friendly during the international break against Chile over there in Santiago de Chile. Just looking at some of the lineups here real quick, it's an interesting lineup that Guillermo Barros, just putting it in for you guys. It was Silva in goal, the back four of Rojas, Balbuena, Gomez, and Alonso. Looking into the midfield, you got the two center defensive midfielders in Diego Gomez and Andres Cubas. Looking into the three in the 4-2-3-1, Villasanti and Ciso in that 10 role, and Matias Rojas on the left, and then Gabriel Avalos as the striker. I mean, looking into how the game transpired, it was a very interesting game. It started off with Chile on the get-go scoring in the 25th minute from Paulo Diaz, but then a quick fire 2 goals from Paraguay in the 32nd and 34th minute saw Paraguay take the lead at 2-1, with Matias Rojas getting in the score sheet, and then Gabriel Avalos getting it 2 minutes later. In the second half, it completely changed. Obviously, we saw Paraguay completely kind of self-destruct, really. Alexis Sanchez getting the equalizing goal in the 76th minute, him coming on as a substitute. Ramon Sosa, who came in as a substitute, was only able to stay 3 minutes. He got sent off in the 81st minute in what really would have been an interesting re-debut from him, if you remember, Ralph, when we saw him in Miami, in Fort Lauderdale against Colombia. And then obviously we saw a big blunder from Anthony Silva in the 92nd minute, an own goal to see Chile with a 3-2 win over Paraguay over there in Chile. I mean, Fede, you've held your fire for all this time. What went wrong in Chile? And if there's anything that could be taken away from this friendly, what can it be? And really, what's the future hold for this side moving forward?
Well, I don't know where to begin. I don't know, from the starting team, from Schelotto, his player selection, or just the way it ended. Because I heard you there. Yeah, the way that ball bounced a bit off of Anthony Silva. That was an ugly way to end the game, an ugly way to lose a game also. I mean, you could see it on the guys' faces, right? I mean, it was just shameful. I mean, Anthony did not know where to put his face after that situation. And it was just a meltdown again, Roberto. I mean, this has happened so many times with this team, and we played 20, 25 good minutes, and then it's just downhill after that. I think it speaks well about the coach. I mean, when he gets a team ready, he has a strategy. He puts that high pressure on, but then what? And the player selection. I mean, again, yeah, you were playing in Santiago. You were playing an away team, an away game. Maybe you were thinking, okay, qualification is coming up. So how am I going to make this team happen? And you're putting by the sides defensive players again. Junior Alonso on the left side, Robert Rojas on the right side. These are center backs. These are not players to attack. And we have players to attack. We can play with players that can attack by the sides. Schelotto definitely does not want to do that, or he didn't want to do it on this game. I mean, Blas Riveros was there. He was not used. You had the opportunity to call maybe Beto Espinola, which I believe is the best right back we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years here in Paraguay. Yeah, he's never left Paraguay, but you see him making a difference in pretty much all the games lately in Cerro Porteño. He wasn't even called up this time. You had Ivan Pires there, maybe. Put Ivan Pires. That's an attacking right back. No, Schelotto did not want to do that. He wanted Robert Rojas there and Junior Alonso. I don't know how many games Junior Alonso has already played for this team. Also, Gustavo Gomez and Fabian Balbuena. How many times are we going to see them together? We already know what they can bring. Don't we have other players? I mean, these guys are leading in that locker room, and what are they bringing to this team? Also, Anthony Silva, and I'm putting them on the spotlight because they've always been there, Ralph. I mean, these are the guys that we've pretty much that we made this team around. I mean, these are the names that have always been there. And if there's something we don't have right now on this team, besides the attacking, because that's, I think, the bright side out of this Chile game, Diabolos, a couple of bright moments from Julio Enciso. Matias Rojas was probably the best player we had on pitch. But on defense, I mean, these guys are always playing together. And what are they doing? This is probably the worst part of our team right now. We are not strong in defense. And how are we going to play against a world champion like Argentina in a couple of months in Buenos Aires? How are we going to stop them if we're not doing anything good in defense? And I want to start off with the defense just because I'm seeing the same names over and over again. And I'm seeing the same problems. We're always losing 3 games in a row we've lost now.
And the first goal is from a set piece. And so we keep conceding from corners or free kicks. And that's very worrying when, like Fede says, you have basically 4 center backs in your team. If you're going to do anything, you should be defending your set pieces. So that has been, I think, a big issue with Barros Schelotto, that he hasn't managed to organize himself in set pieces and defensively. And that's really important when, as well, he said he didn't want 2 friendlies. He only had 1 friendly because he wanted more time to practice. What were they practicing? Who knows, right? Because the same problems occur. The Anthony Silva mistake is particularly bad because it's the second time he's conceded that goal to Chile. If you remember, he conceded one like that in the qualifiers. And so, of course, Alexis Sanchez he's a very intelligent player. He was looking for it and he picked the spot. So it's not like a freak it seemed like a freak error, but it's not. It's happened again, and I would say Alexis was planning for that. And for sure, Alexis Sanchez changes the game, I thought, a lot when he came on in the second half. That did really give Chile something else, because Paraguay were doing well towards the end of the first half. It's interesting, the players, just quickly, the players he's picked. He picked a lot of Argentinian league players in the squad. There were times, especially under Berizzo, that we were picking a lot of MLS, Liga MX players. That seems to have changed, right? There seems to have been a shift. And so he's picking players that are doing very well in that league, like Matias Rojas. And that's worked in the sense that Rojas was doing very well. Avalos had a pretty good game. But you're still wondering, are these people at the right level? Is this the quality that you're going to need in the World Cup qualifiers? For sure, we're missing Almiron, which is a big miss. But you still wonder, like, okay, they had a good game or they had a good 30 minutes, but are these going to be the players that are going to make a difference in the qualifiers? And is not looking good at the moment for Paraguay.
Okay, Ralph, take out Anthony Silva. Who are you going to put in there? If you take out Anthony Silva, there's nobody waiting.
Yeah, that's a big problem, to the point that maybe we should mention to people that don't know, Paraguay were looking at a goalkeeper in the MLS who apparently has Paraguayan heritage. And so they're trying to, and actually there's a lot in the news at the moment in Paraguay of trying to find some of these players with two nationalities that could somehow qualify and play for Paraguay, because there is literally no one. I mean, Aldo Perez was called up for the first time, but he's not, again, he's playing in the Paraguayan local league. We don't have really much of that quality. And Paul Silva, he's what, 38, 39. So by the next World Cup, I mean, he's mid-40s. It's not going to be the right person. But you're right, we don't have anybody to fill that gap.
Do you still have patience with these guys, Roberto? Are you still with them? Because I'm letting them go already, and hasn't started yet.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is weird because the contract that Berizzo had signed was up until the Copa America of next year. So, certainly there are connections there, but, certainly, okay, yes. In the qualifying process that he come in, it was going to be difficult for him to do anything with the squad. So you thought, okay, let's see what they do in friendlies. Obviously, losses in Asia, you got that win in Atlanta that Ralph and I went to in Mexico. It was a kind of a fluke going away, but it was kind of that, really. But then bad performances against Peru, Colombia, and now Chile. Those are three teams that Paraguay are really vying to take on to qualify for this World Cup, assuming that you see Argentina and Brazil qualify, and then you got the three and a half other spots for whoever is left. So yeah, I mean, this is not looking good at all, but I think certainly with the way that this side is difficult. It really is difficult. So we'll just have to wait and see. But honestly, right now, no, I don't really have patience with this manager. Will anything happen? I don't know. That's something that we have to wait in. And I think just to close it out, guys, I mean, really, what can we really take away from this? Ralph, I'll go to you on this one. Just what can you take away from this at all?
There's no. This is the problem, because there's never really a clear strategy or things to take out. So you leave these games with as the same questions you had going into them. Nothing seems to get resolved. I think the main thing to take from this is we're not ready. We're not ready for the qualifiers, so we need some way of preparing the team. And I'm speaking like particularly again about the set pieces, because that's a relatively simple thing. Like finding a new goalkeeper is not easy. There isn't a big talent pool, but we can do that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't know, we're not ready. But sometimes what happens is you see teams, it's a long qualifying campaign, teams develop during the campaign. And so that's what I'm hoping for, that we somehow start finding the solutions as we go through.
I'm hoping that the qualifications do not start this year, Roberto. Just like Ralph was saying, we're not ready. Maybe can we start next year? Maybe with the whole other year, some players start to. I don't want to start yet. I'm kind of scared about the qualification. With this team, I'm kind of scared, Roberto. I'm not liking our chances at all. I'm not liking the defense. I'm not liking what I'm seeing in midfield. Escobas is always there. He's reminding me of Gaston Jimenez. I'm having Gaston Jimenez flashbacks every time I'm seeing him. I mean, it's got to be him and somebody else. He got to always be there. I don't know why coaches do this. They got to have their player always there. He's doing that with Andres Cubas. I mean, I wanted to see more of Kaku. I wanted to see Kaku Romero. He was back there. He came at 90th minute. He barely played. I don't know why they brought him from the other side of the world just to like barely see him. And I wanted to see Julio Enciso with Robert Morales. I did not get that on this friendly either. So I'm not feeling good at all with this team. Hopefully by September, a miracle happens and I don't know, this team totally changes it around. But as of right now, I'm hoping the qualifications do not start in 2023 because Paraguay is not ready.
Unfortunately, unless something does indeed happen, I don't think that will be the case, Fede. Sorry to ruin your party there. But yeah, we'll definitely wait and see what happens here as we close out another episode of Guarani Vision. For myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Ralph Hannah, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.